Hello everyone, and welcome back to Seers Isle. Where we last left off, I made another bad decision and it cost Eric his life. So that's wonderful. Yeah. So let's see what's in store for us now. Then there was a blank flash of lightning, and I am driven out of her dream, into the disembodied emptiness of the in-between world, my prison, as the sun rises over the forests. When I arrive at the bivouac, the group is already up and about. The mood is glum. Yeah, my fault. After all that has happened, it's natural that their morale is not high. Arlen scatters the last embers in the fireplace, while the others gather their belongings. They set off again. Chapter 4. Underworld. The slope gets steeper as they advance. The leafy underbrush of intermingled oaks, birch, and beech trees clear little by little. After a while, they realize that they are now surrounded by conifers. The path is half hidden beneath a carpet of brown needles. They continue in silence. Frey is at the head of the line, at ease in this familiar environment. The standing stones which mark their route are smaller now, forcing her to stop at each to seek out the next one. Duncan comes at the back. He tries to put on a brave face, but the exchange of blows with Eric the day before has earned him his share of bruises and strains. Freya turns back regularly to be sure that the rest of the group is not falling behind. When the sun is almost at its zenith, they arrive on a natural plateau. Freya stops to admire the landscape. Here the view is less obstructed, but the forest seems to stretch endlessly in every direction. Listening carefully, she can hear the crystalline tinkling of a mountain stream. The others have caught up. Connor sits and stretches his tired legs. All right. It's a bit lacking in paved roads, and some taverns wouldn't go amiss. But at least we're seeing the world. One more push, just a bit further, and I think there's a water source. Duncan points. That way? Yes, why? If I stop now, I'm not sure I'll be able to get going again. I'll go in front of you if you want to stop for a few minutes to catch your breath. Connor gets up. Duncan's right. If I sit down for too long, I'm going to doze off. They continue their walk, reinvigorated by the sound of running water getting closer and closer. Freya guides them, and after crossing a boulder field, they discover a shallow stream. There is a waterfall further upstream. There must be a natural pool carved out under the fall. It'd be ideal for us to freshen up and fill our flasks. Arlen looks at the stream with interest. It looks like there's some fish. I'm more used to sea fishing with a net, but I could try to catch us a meal. I've got hooks and line in my bag. Good idea. I'll go hunt while you do that. There's a good chance I can raise a hare or a partridge. Maybe even a deer. Duncan lowers his head unhappily. He would like to be useful, but his wounds are troubling him. Duncan stays with Connor. I'm going to stay with... Duncan stops, discomposed. He takes a deep breath and resumes. Can I go with you, Freya? Freya stares at him, disbelief written all over her face. It's Arlen who answers him. Look, Duncan, you've been struggling to walk since this morning. You better go save her... You do better to save her strength. Duncan looks in my direction. For a moment I sense that he sees me. Yes, you're probably right. If you want to make yourself useful, you can build a fire with Connor. That way we can cook our catch as soon as we get it back. Duncan nods. Be careful and don't get too far away. Oh, don't worry. Myself, I'm just going to go downriver a bit to find a calm spot. Connor and Duncan pick up their belongings and head towards the waterfall. Freya goes to the stream and crouches to fill her flask. Arlen does the same, smiles at her, then sets off, studying the river as she walks downstream. She sees plenty of fish gliding below the surface, probably trout or salmon. The current is too strong for her to let down her line, and she needs to find a branch to make a rod. But the conifers which border the shores of the stream, that may be more difficult than she had thought. She would have liked to have found reeds, but they don't seem to grow so far inland. Anna is considering this conjuring when she hears the cry of a cormorant above her head. A cormorant? So far inland? She shades her eyes with her hand and stretches out for the bird. For an instant, she's dazzled by the light. The sound comes of waves. The sound of waves comes through her ears before her eyes have adjusted. The forest has given way to a thick fog. Under her feet, in her nostrils, the salty smell of sea spray. On her left, she can make out the rocky promontory which juts out to the sea. She knows this cave. Oh, cove, I mean. If she goes up the little path to the east, she will come across a small house that shelters her family. A shiver goes through Arlen. The weather is certainly not that of the springtime she had left a few moments earlier. Arlen follows the path up the cliffside and comes to a barren heath, sprinkled with heather. A little further in towards the sea, she can make out the shape of the house. As she gets closer, she notices that a sluggish smoke escapes the chimney. The house is dilapidated, almost in ruins. Even if it has never been in perfect condition, it has always been somehow more or less habitable. As she crosses the threshold, the single small room is plunged into gloom. None of her many brothers and sisters are there to brighten the home with a laugh or squabble. The silence is complete. As her eyes adjust to the darkness, Arlen distinguishes a presence. A man sits on the bed, holding his head in his hands. He is bent forward and his long, stringy hair covers his face. Pa? The man raises his head and looks at Arlen with a dullness tinged with anger. Arlen? They told me in the village that you wouldn't come back. Where are the children? Where are the children? Urges of pain crosses Vanek's face. Are they dead? Oh no. That's actually sad. I know that it hasn't been easy for you. Since Gwynnefar's sickness. The man lets out a long sigh, reluctant to continue. He really speaks of Arlen's mother. Her loss has been so painful for him. What has happened? Tell me. When you didn't return to the boat, the guild of fishers. They separated your brothers and sisters. They sent them on the boats, so they would earn their room and board. Arlen is suddenly seized by a terrible terror. But they're too young to work on the boats. They promised me that they would take care of them no matter what the outcome of the trials. How could you have believed them? I know you held out old Enid dear, but did you really believe that you could take her place? And anyway, you never had any talent for being a healer. What did you want me to do? Enid has always protected us. It didn't matter to her that we were the children of an outsider. Arlen pauses, reluctant to continue, then adds in a low voice. She did much more for our family than you ever did. How can you say that? It's not my fault that we fell in love, Gwynnefer and I. It's not my fault that the village never accepted me. And it's not my fault that those idiots rejected her when we announced our union. Of course, if she had married old Howell's son, it would have been easier for everyone. But we can't change the past. And you could have waited. I got back just after you left. Look. The man gestures at the table on the other side of the room with the back of his hand. A meager purse is on the table, a few miserable copper and silver coins spilling from it. I'm gonna pity him. Arlen looks at her father with deep contempt. She seizes the tiny leather bag and empties it onto the table. Do you really believe that these few coins would have changed anything? Since Mother died, you're never here. And if you came back just after I left, why didn't you stay and take care of your children? Is your family as unbearable to you as that? But no, Arlen, that's not. Of course it's easier to tour the country with your cittern slung on your back rather than face real problems. But I don't have a choice. Minstrelling is the only job I know. I can't turn myself into a fisher, a carpenter, and I don't know what. I bring you all the money I've earned every time I come back. I know it's not wealth and luxury. Wealth and luxury? The children were starving, so I accepted when they offered me a way of making sure that my brothers and sisters could live free from want. The man bursts into sobs. Arlen feels bad for him. Since illness carried off her mother, he has become a shadow of his former self. He repeats, I'm sorry, holding his head in his hands. She decides to leave him there. If the Seers think they will break her by showing her this, they are wrong. Arlen softly leaves the little house, closes the door, and returns back down the cliffside path without a single glance behind her. The path to the village is deserted. It always is after the storm season, which marks the end of the winter and the return of spring. Night has almost fallen when she reaches the main street. The sea air blows an icy salt wind, which has dispersed the fog and brought a fine drizzle. She crosses the marketplace towards the only two-story house, which dwarfs the crooked hovels that surround it. She taps on the door, then getting no answer, knocks harder. A sickly-looking middle-aged man finally answers. Who dares disturb me at this time? When his eyes fall on Arlen, the irritation, then the consternation, give way to a toothy grin. His gold tooth gleams in the light of the blaze burning in the large chimney. Arlen Vanek daughter? What a nice surprise. We didn't expect to see you again. Arlen tries not to flinch and holds the intimidating gaze of the old fisherman. Behind her, a curious crowd is gathered. With a distracted ear, she hears the half-whispered remarks of the villagers. She ignores them as she usually does. Here she has always been the outsider's daughter, the one who is pointed at and carefully avoided. Where are my brothers and sisters? For the first time, the old man looks away. Behind her, two red-headed, muscled giants jostle through the crowd. Is there a problem, Master Howell? Do you want us to escort the Jester's daughter out of the village? No, let her say what she has to say. Howell turns his attention to Arlen. Arwind is on one of my boats. She left for the high sea last week. She'll be back for Belthane. Cory took one of your brothers, the one with the ugly scar on his forehead. I regret to tell you that he was carried off by a ground swell a little after Imbolc. The sea kept him. Arlen feels something break in her chest. And the others? Howell fixes the young woman with a piercing stare as if he were bargaining for a basket of salmon. We had a deal. You're supposed to replace old Enid. The village is still without a healer when the winter came. Arlen has the urge to retch. We didn't only lose your brothers and sisters. Alfred's son died too. Excuse me? Alfred's son was a newborn. Sophia was weaned over 3 years ago, and she was the youngest of my sisters. You only have yourself to blame. If you had returned before Mabon, as is the custom, you probably could have healed your family. Arlen spits in his face. The henchman sees her, each one taking her by an arm. Take action. I have to act. Arlen looks at me. She sees me. I take a step forward, but she stops me immediately. There is a light of understanding in her face. She is probably realizing where she is and what is happening. No. Let me do it. This is my trial. A great silence falls on the village. Then a murmur goes through the crowd gathered in the master's forecourt. Suddenly someone cries, "Witch!" Another voice takes up, "Burn her, she speaks to the dead." Old Howell tries to speak out, clearing his throat and waving his hands to quiet them, but to no effect. The crowd is hysterical. Someone shouts, "She is not a healer, she has succumbed to necromancy." The master's two lackeys try to protect Arlen as best they can, but the villagers have transformed into savage beasts. The woman grabs her by the collar. A man pulls the other way on her leather surcoat. The cord finally gives, knocking Arlen's breath out of her. But she is not afraid. On the contrary, so much hate and stupidity only stoke her anger. She lets out a cry and pushes her aggressors with all her force. There's a crash in the master's house, and flames swallow up the old man, spreading rapidly across the oaken floor and then upstairs. A charred and blistered Howell crawls out of the house in front of the aghast villagers. A last rattle comes from his throat before he claps his face down in the mud. Chaos prevails. Fishers and washerwomen scramble haphazardly. Some have fallen to their knees, clutching their heads in their hands. The thatched roof of the neighboring house is consumed by great flames. The other side, thick smoke vomits out of the door and windows of the weaver's house. Arlen towards me. Come, it's time to return to the island. Suddenly we are in a cavern. There is a sulphurous odor in the sharp, clean air of the cave. Arlen's eyes do not leave me. You can see me? Yes, you've been following us since the beach, right? I nod my head. Arlen looks grim. Freya, Duncan, Connor, are they in danger too? I realize that the others must also be going through their trials. Yes, I have to help them. I'm coming with you. No, you'll be no help to them. Wait for me on the other side. At the way out of the cave. I turn on my heels and run towards the entrance of the cave. I hope that it's not too late for the others. As I get closer to the way out, I feel my tether to the world of men slipping away from me again. I love Rowan, she is so cool. As I race between the pines, I know that I am once more invisible. I stride through the forest, hoping to find a trace of Freya without success. Her fate is already sealed. If I have to return to the camp, if I delay too long, I will be too late for Duncan and Connor. I cross the woods as fast as I can. When I reach the waterfall, I am relieved to find Duncan and Connor. Connor is stirring the campfire with a stick and looking distracted, while Duncan is getting dressed. They must have washed in the pool at the foot of the waterfall while I was away. A sense of worry hovers around them. Duncan scrutinizes the forest, probably hoping for a sign of Arlen or Freya. Connor turns to him. Still nothing? No. It's been a long time. I'm going to go look for them. Do you think that's a good idea to split up? No, it's not. I want to warn them. I try to penetrate Duncan's mind with Connor's without success. Duncan lowers his eyes. I can't stay here doing nothing. In that case, let me come with you. No, one of us should wait here in case. Don't worry, I'll be careful. Connor gives a small, wry smile, as if he knows what is coming. Duncan hurries off between the trees. I decided to follow him rather than stay with Connor. My connection with Duncan is too strong for me to ignore. A mist has risen and seems to be thickening as he hastens between the trees. Duncan hesitates. If he wanders too deep in the forest in search of Freya, he may not find his way back to the camp. He knows that he has neither her sense of direction nor her talent for tracking. On the other hand, he thinks to himself that Arlen has only theoretically to follow the river to find her way back to the camp. He starts to continue, following as well as he can the marks left by Freya. The trail rapidly becomes erratic. The footprints in the soft soil give contradictory directions before disappearing completely. He's about to turn back when he reaches a path that seems strangely familiar. How can this be? He moves forward, his heart thumping, first moving quickly, then flagging at a slower pace. The sun is hidden. The rays of light no longer pierce the branches which obscure a slate sky. As he approaches the edge, the forest has thinned, the pines and spruce replaced by the beeches and hornbeams of his home. A fine layer of snow covers the ground. An icy cold seizes Duncan, piercing him to the bone. Far away at the forest edge, just before the incline which leads to the castle, a hooded silhouette faces him. The long walking stick that he holds in his left hand, crooked and deformed by its many knots, is instantly recognizable. However, there is something strange and different about the old man's posture. Uncle Leith? His cheeks are hollowed by hunger, and his eyes are feverish. It is not the laughing, reassuring, confident, burly despite his venerable age, that he had left a few days earlier to come to the island. He regards Duncan with haggard eyes. Duncan? You come too late, much too late. Your father waited for you until Sada, then he lost patience. What happened? There were skirmishes with the clan of the Deer during the summer. They surprised me as I was gathering herbs. I think that's blood on his tunic right there. They took me hostage. It lasted a long time. Leith grimaces with pain. The specter of death can be glimpsed in his eyes. And then your father, with no one to hold back his demons. Leith is quiet. The two men know that there is no need to say more. If you hadn't failed... I haven't failed. Because he's still doing stuff. But I haven't failed. All of this that hasn't happened. I've passed all the tests. I'm on my way to the summit. Not failed? Not failed, truly. 6 moons have passed since you left. Look around you, winter has returned. No, that hasn't happened yet. I'm going to succeed, and I'll be there to help the clan if this disaster does happen. Leith looks at Duncan with haunted eyes, as if he didn't understand what he had said. What exactly happened, Uncle Leith? There was a council of the clans at Letha. Your father demanded a reckoning of old Harold, the chief of the Deer clan, for the farm that was pillaged in the spring. I warned him not to attack him head-on, but Harold would deny the facts. All the more because he had no proof to lay blame. Things soon got heated. But that happens at every council, and still the clans always manage to come to an agreement. Not this time. The Lake clans rallied behind Harold. It was a skillfully set trap. Your father, in a burst of rage, buried his axe in old Harold's skull. His son, a young mad dog, thinks only of avenging him. I should have been there. I could have done something. I don't believe you could have done anything. There were scuffles all summer. Your brother Olaf was wounded in an attack while he was hunting near the lake. They took me when I went to find herbs to save him. In the fall, the fighting intensified. Your father attacked the fort of the Deer clan and took it. But as usual, he didn't consider the price he had to pay. The harvests, which were already poor, as the stars had predicted, were destroyed by the clashes. There was a famine. Our clan was starving. Sickness carried off your elder brother Gunnar last month. Your father's favorite, Bjorn's son, was killed during the siege. You were the only one left. You are the last heir. It's not his fault. It's not my fault. The youth looks at Duncan with skepticism. The Seers of the island. Time has stretched. They used their magic to torment me. The youth doesn't seem to understand what Duncan has said. In any case, I don't think you could have done much to avoid the disaster. He suddenly looks weary, as if the full force of the weight of the years has hit him. His voice is receding, becoming remote. Go, your father is waiting for you. This image disintegrates into wisps of blue which rise skywards before Duncan can answer. Duncan follows a path which winds down towards the castle. The snow has begun to fall in great feathery flakes. He is chilled to the bone by the incessant cold. Far away he hears the howling of wolves. He crosses the war-ravaged village. Not a living soul. It's either a really large dog or a weird-looking horse. I don't know. Or a cow. It's a cow. Anyway. Most of the cottages have been ravaged by flames. In a courtyard, the cadaver of a scrawny horse has been abandoned and rots beneath the porch. Oh. Weird-looking horse. Song of the Wolves is closer now. In the castle ruins, what remains of the great hall is plunged in gloom. Disorder rules. The great hearth is extinguished despite the glacial cold. A hoarse shout sounds through the room. Duncan squints. There is someone slumped in the master's place, on the platform which holds the table of honor at the end of the room. Father? The huge man rises, comes around the table, and approaches Duncan. But the man doesn't seem to recognize Duncan. His vacant eyes are stripped of emotion. He grasps the axe. Try to reason with him. Father, it's me, Duncan. He approaches Duncan under the dismayed gaze of his son. He lifts his axe. Hey, it's a wolf. And strikes with all of his strength. Duncan barely has time to dodge and falls to the ground. The man gives a hollow laugh, his crazed eyes staring vacantly. Then he advances, relentless, the iron of his axe glowing in the dim room. Duncan gets up and reluctantly draws his sword. The wolves have entered the room and form a circle around the two combatants. Duncan knows that if he wants to survive this trial, he has no choice. It can only end with the death of one of the fighters. He knows his father is stronger, tougher, and more experienced in handling weapons. The longer the confrontation lasts, the more the balance will fall against the younger man. He has to take a decision, and he has to take it now. I'm gonna press surrender. I know he's probably gonna get killed. Attack his father. That's happened. Despite all the bullying and criticism, he has always been the last and weakest of his brothers. Hasn't his father always been harder, more unyielding with him than his brothers? No, despite his faults and his mistakes, his father always has been just. As with all his sons, he tried to make him a strong heir, capable of commanding the respect of the clan. Duncan cannot resolve himself to lift his weapon against him today. He throws his weapon down and falls to his knees, resigned to his fate. He closes his eyes and waits for the blade to fall. But it does not. Rowan! He is no longer in the castle of his childhood, but in a cavern. His eyes rest on me. He sees me. He knows me. Rowan? I wonder how they know her. Like, who is she to them? There is a noise near the entry of the cave. One of the Seers comes into the light. He moves towards us with a decided tread. A second step, then a third. I am terrified. Duncan tries to come between us. Hey, what do you want with us? Only listening to my instinct, I take advantage of the diversion and take to my heels. I bury myself in the depths of the earth, between rock and root, where shadows reign. Where the silence and obscurity finally swallow me, the void changes to night. Chapter 5. Ah. Well then. That was a short chapter, still 30-some minutes, but that was pretty cool. That's all we have for today, and if you want to, follow my social media down below, and if you want to, comment, like, or subscribe, or share if you want. I'll see you in the next video, which is tomorrow. Goodbye, everyone.